Welcome to the Retirement Halftime Show. I am your host, Alexander Joyce, President, CEO of ReJoyce Financial. You would not play the second half of a game the same way you did the first, especially if you've got the lead. As it relates to retirement, and many of you have that lead, so what do? We maintain it. Maintain your lead in retirement. Stick around, we've got a great show for you. Or when they come in our office and they sit down with us and they interview us, if you would, they're looking for a relationship. Again, what we'll call the second distinct phase of a financial life. Our priorities, the number one is creating your income, or that are putting money into qualified plans at an employer that offers a 401k plan or an IRA, money that you've been saving on a tax-deferred basis, money you've never paid taxes on.
The Retirement Halftime Show starts right now. Retirement Halftime Show. Maintain your lead in retirement.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show. I am your host, Alexander Joyce, and with me, Alex Clark, co-host. We're talking about what clients can expect from us. What's in it for them?
I think that's a great topic, Alex. You know, when we meet with most people, right, you know, they're looking for common things, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody they can trust, somebody that they feel that they can be loyal to. You know, all sorts of things that you would think of that build a symbiotic long-term relationship. You know, it varies upon the person. Most people want to come in and first kind of feel the waters per se. Yeah. But I think ultimately, when they work with us, it's those things that we value internally. You know, the loyalty, the trust, things along that nature that, you know, really give me satisfaction in working with the team and providing that service to our clients.
Sure, and I think that, and I think you hit on some really powerful topics, right? I mean, trust is everything, right? Loyalty, communication, right? Honesty, leadership, confidence, education, I think comes to part. I think these are things that lots of people look at, whether we know this or not. That's how they're judging us, right? One thing I've always said when we're doing educational events, right, seminars or what have you, is in opening, a lot of people have heard me say this, to me, this is nothing more but a big open interview.
Right.
It doesn't get any more real than this. And a lot of people are probably looking at us right now and thinking the same thing. What's in it for me?
Exactly.
Right? If I were to hire you, if you would, what are some of the things that I can expect? How are you different from other people? And I think that one thing that I want people to take away, because we're different, right? Here we are, ReJoyce Financial, you know, Alex Joyce, Alex Clark, doing a program like this when they have the ability to walk anywhere with their hard-earned assets. And what makes us different than walking into a Morgan Stanley, a Merrill Lynch, or a Fidelity that's been around 100 years, if you would.
Absolutely.
And I think that what people expect when they meet with us or when they come in our office and they sit down with us and they interview us, if you would, they're looking for a relationship.
100%.
They're looking for something they don't want, because, you know, to them it's, let's get past the cookie cutter approach, or let's get past it could be a mutual fund, or let's get past the product. They want to know that if they run into us at a grocery store, hey, John, right? And we can call them and talk to them by name. We know their kids, we know their grandkids, we know their plan, we built their plan, and we're almost as if we're a part of the family.
They want to know we care.
They want to know that we care. And I think that for most people, that probably means more than a good recommended product or something that we think could put points in their portfolio overnight.
Right.
I think they care more about a prosperous relationship than anything else.
You know, and that goes back to things that we've talked about in the past, right? People don't know what to expect when they're looking for that change.
Sure.
Right? So working with an individual to make them more comfortable, more candid, more transparent, more open communication, right? That just helps the relationship evolve.
Sure.
And not only is that a relationship evolves, right? we can understand better what you're trying to achieve. And that is instrumental in allowing us to help our clients into their retirement.
We sure think so. And you know, I've always said that, and I believe in this wholeheartedly, that no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And we think also, having said that, we're passionate about that point. And we think for those that maybe aren't getting the service that they believe they should, or maybe those that are in question about the fees or the cost of their overall expenses in the portfolio or the plan, or maybe they don't feel like maybe they feel their portfolio is driving faster than what they feel comfortable with. Maybe they simply need a second opinion.
Yeah.
Right. I would encourage those to reach out to us. I would encourage those to pick up the phone or call or stop by our website and learn
jump
more.
on the website. You know, you can easily go in an inquiry posted there.
Absolutely.
So
be a part of our newsletters and things like that. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, hey, Alex, I think this is good, and I think it gives somebody or someone or those that are thinking about calling a realistic foundation of expectations to follow.
Yep.
Because without well-managed expectations, there is no relationship.
Exactly.
Right. Hey, the best is yet to come. Stay tuned.
The Retirement Halftime Show. Maintain your lead in retirement.
There's some things in life we can always get back. Money, that's one of them. But time, that can never be replaced. Your kids, grandkids, they don't care how big your house is or the type of car you drive. The time they spend with you, that's what matters most. Allow us to help take your financial concerns away so you can enjoy the more important things in life. Call us today at 317-903-9157. Schedule a no-obligation visit and rejoice in your retirement.
The Retirement Halftime Show. Maintain your lead in retirement.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show. I am your host, Alexander Joyce, and we want to discuss what we call the two distinct phases of anyone's financial life. We routinely see that people that are climbing this mountain and are on their way to retirement are still taking the same amount of risk or prioritizing their finances the same way when they're climbing this mountain, the same way they do or are going to as they come down. But what we really want to understand is the priorities are much different, right? Because when you're climbing this mountain, there's two main priorities. That's accumulation and growth, right? So you've got your 401k that you were told to maximize the growth on it, or put as much money as you possibly can into it, or start a self-directed IRA, a Roth IRA. You're looking for ways to save as much money as possible because you want to retire, right? So that's the main thing. But what I want us to do, and the reason we use this mountain concept, if you would, is because it's easy to understand, right? So now let's consider what we call Mount Everest, right? So a lot of adrenaline climbing that mountain, a lot of energy on your way up. You finally reach to the top, you've done it, right? You celebrate, but a lot of injury and a lot of accident and a lot of deaths occur coming down. So when we're climbing this mountain to retirement, it's the same concept. You've got a lot of energy. You've got a routine life, right? You do the same thing you've been doing for the last 30, 40, 50 years. You reach the top of the mountain, you're retired. You celebrate. Now coming down is very different. It can be very frustrating, very difficult, and that's where a lot of accidents and injuries occur. So when we're looking at the distribution phase, again, what we'll call the second distinct phase of a financial life, our priorities, the number one is creating your income, which is much different because when you're in that accumulation phase, you relied on your earned income, not your real ability to earn income from your job. But when you get to the top of the mountain, it isn't necessarily that you physically don't want to do it. It's that your desire to want to go to work or continue doing that has changed, right? So the first thing we want to understand is, how do we create income from our own assets? That's one of the biggest concerns that individuals have, because truly, it doesn't matter how big that pile of money is, if it's Joe Schmo down the street with $10 million or him or her down the street with $100,000. The concern is still the same. Do we have enough? Have we saved enough? And what is the likelihood that we'll outlive that money? That's the true concern, especially as individuals age every single year and we're all living longer with changes in technology. The concern is, how do we take that money from our portfolio, stretch it out as long as we possibly can, with the understanding we're going to live longer, and the possibility of longevity risk coming into play. That's a concern. Wealth protection. What are the ways that we need to preserve some of that wealth? Of course, as we age or get older, becoming more conservative always is a challenge, if you would. A lot of people, when they reach the top of the mountain and they retire, they kind of forget what it took, if you will, to get them there. So they naturally say, you know what, at this point, taking a lot of risk in our portfolio isn't something that we're comfortable with. So why don't we just go to a more fixed income position or an interest bearing account? That could be challenging. Understand that inflation ticks up near 3% and you're only getting 1%. You're actually losing 2% with purchasing power. That is a risk. It's inflation risk. So we need to make sure, as we consider preserving some of that principal, we need to understand that hedging long-term or hedging inflation is still something that is needed to keep up with purchasing power, right? So that again is one of the main priorities in that second phase, or that second distinct phase of your financial life. Asset preservation and growth, as we just mentioned. We have to understand or sit down with an advisor to see the options that are available to us to keep up with inflation, have fixed income and growth, having that well-balanced, well-diversified portfolio. That's what we need to understand. Having a plan in retirement, as opposed to just shoveling away at our principal or shoveling away from our assets with no real plan, if you will, no direction of a true retirement. That's important. Legacy planning. One of the things we've always asked our clients, or one of the things that you may hear us say a lot, is what is the purpose of the assets? Is it live on or is it leave on? To us, those are two very different, distinct asset classes. So we need to make sure we're asking those questions so we can get it right the first time. Tax efficiency, with the understanding that when you're climbing this mountain in the first phase, a lot of this money that you've been saving is qualified, which means it's never been taxed. So we need to understand the possibilities of how taxation could erode the principal, how fees could erode some of your overall assets, and how taxes play a part in the portfolio. So having a well-defined tax plan in your portfolio is extremely important as well. Planning is extremely important. We've always said that most individuals don't have a plan in retirement, a true retirement plan. And if they do have a plan, they don't have a tax plan. And if they got a plan and a tax plan, they don't have an estate plan. So understanding the total holistic approach of what your retirement looks like is important. Shielding the assets from things like long-term care, longevity planning, longevity risk is a real concern in retirement. So the fact is, what we need to understand is there are two sides to this, right? The accumulation phase is the first distinct phase in your retirement. The distribution phase is the second phase. Like we've said in the theme of our show, you can't play a game the same way the second half, the same way you did the first, especially if you've got the lead. A lot of us have that lead in retirement. So if we do, what do? We maintain that lead in retirement. You play defense. Understanding the two distinct phases in an overall retirement plan is important. If you've got any questions, just give us a call. Check out our website. Stay tuned. There's more show to come.
The Retirement Halftime Show. Maintain your lead in retirement.
There's some things in life we can always get back. Money, that's one of them. But time, that can never be replaced. Your kids, grandkids, they don't care how big your house is or the type of car you drive. The time they spend with you, that's what matters most. Allow us to help take your financial concerns away so you can enjoy the more important things in life. Call us today at 317-903-9157. Schedule a no-obligation visit and rejoice in your retirement.
The Retirement Halftime Show. Maintain your lead in retirement.
You are watching the Retirement Halftime Show. I am your host, Alexander Joyce, and of course with us, as usual, I'm Alex Clark. And it's these topics that we always go over. They're great. And one thing I love about this show, I don't know about you, we didn't talk about this coming into this show, but one of the things I like about this show is it is not scripted. Right. And I'm sure our viewers and our audience can tell. There's nothing scripted about this. There is nothing. These are a collection of concerns. These are a collection of thoughts. These are years and years, decade of questions that we've asked our clients or people that have walked through our doors that have the same concerns our viewers do. And let's just open it up like this. What's on your mind?
You know, I think the common one that I've been hearing a lot lately, Alex, is required minimum distribution.
Okay.
You know, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah. You know, that's interesting because a lot of individuals aren't. I think, let me take it back. I think a lot of people know what required minimum distribution is. And I think that a lot of people refer to it, of course, as RMD.
Sure.
And I think here's the way I view it, and the concern I have with it is that when I speak at events, or if I ask a client at age 70 and a half, what is the amount of money that must come out of what's called your qualified money, right? What must you take out of your pre-tax dollars at age 70 and a half? You know the most common answer I get?
What is it?
Now, I want our viewers to think about this. What is on your mind? What do you think at 70 and a half must come out of the money you've never taken taxes out of? That number is, right, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. And usually that number is 10%. Right? And some of us listening or some of us watching this are like, well, 10%, that's a lot. And that's not the right answer. The right answer is 3.65%. That's what must come out. So at first, what I want our viewers to understand the difference between qualified and non-qualified, right? Because the only thing the IRS cares about is what's called the qualified money.
Sure.
And that, as I just mentioned, for our firefighters watching, their 457 plans. For our educators watching, their 403B plans or their 401A plans. For individuals that are putting money into qualified plans at an employer that offers a 401K plan or an IRA, money that you've been saving on a tax-deferred basis, money you've never paid taxes on. Now, pretty much Uncle Sam has said, well, you know what, they can either pay me now, right, sure, or they can pay me later. And so that later means age 70 and a half. So what we just talked about, right, is that it isn't an if, it isn't if they want to, it is they must.
Yeah.
So at age 70 and a half, following, right, April 1st following the year they turned 70 and a half, they must take what's called a required minimum distribution. And that required minimum distribution starts at 3.65%. Here's what most people also... Starts.
Okay.
Okay?
It's a key word.
That is the key word, because here's the complication, is the older an individual gets in retirement, as we talked about before, the first 5 years are like a Saturday. That's when they're spending a lot of money. And then as they age in retirement, the spending goes down. But the problem is when you think about RMD, knowing that it starts at 3.65%, what must you know is that it increases every single year.
Right.
The IRS has a table that has mapped it out all the way to age 105, and that number is 22.22%. So the question becomes, knowing that the older you get, the less money you need, unless it's a health-related issue, knowing that taxes over time could go up, and knowing that RMD will go up, and that's money that must come out,
sure, it's
no wonder that we see clients that are 85 years old that come in our office with very large bank accounts, because you know what they're not doing?
They don't know what to do.
They don't know what to do. So that money comes out, they pay taxes on it, it lands in their bank account. Now, if inflation is 3%, they're getting 0.5%, now they're going broke safely. How's someone not supposed to outlive their money?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, and the other thing that I kind of want to point out is there is a vital deadline too, because if you're not hitting that 70 and a half and pulling the money out, there is a large penalty that the IRS does.
50%.
50%.
50%. The IRS will penalize you 50% of what the RMD if you do not take it out. Last year was the largest percentage of baby boomers that turned 70 and a half. So it's brand new to a lot of people.
Sure.
Right? It's just like, how many times do you want to retire? Once.
Once.
How many times have you been 70 and a half?
Once.
They got to get advice.
Exactly.
Great topic. If there's a concern from our viewers, if there is, because we hand out a form that just simply goes over this, if that's something that you want, just call us, reach out to us, go to our website. More to come. Stay tuned.
The Retirement Halftime Show. Maintain your lead in retirement.
There's some things in life we can always get back. Money, that's one of them. But time, that can never be replaced. Your kids, grandkids, they don't care how big your house is or the type of car you drive. The time they spend with you, that's what matters most. Allow us to help take your financial concerns away so you can enjoy the more important things in life. Call us today at 317-903-9157. Schedule a no-obligation visit and rejoice in your retirement.
The Retirement Halftime Show. Maintain your lead in retirement.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show. I am your host, Alexander Joyce, and with co-host Alex Clark. Alex, I wanted to talk about a topic that could relate to a lot of people. I know that we get this a lot, and I know that it's commonly called long-term care. That's to me, sometimes could be a negative word. How we've always positioned it, and you've done a really good job at this, the team has. But what I like to look at is what's called longevity risk.
Sure.
Right? Long-term care is a part of longevity risk, but I think long-term care is the vehicle that could help, or the conduit, if you will, that could help avoid or mitigate longevity risk.
Right.
I think that longevity risk is getting more and more difficult because technology is getting greater and greater, and people are living longer and longer.
That's a fact.
And longer.
Yeah. That's one thing that we try to talk about throughout our process, right? Because I always refer to it as a pinprick can definitely sink the Titanic, and that could be the long-term care. And the long-term care has become a very interesting space, if you will. It just used to be a standalone product. Yeah. Where we talk, it's just a traditional premium.
Kind of a retail, do you need it or do you want it? Kind of a
premium based, right?
Sure.
Can I afford it? Yes, no.
Right.
Okay, I can see maybe it would work. Well, now we've come into, the hybrids where it's riding as a chassis or a rider on life insurance policies.
Okay,
we have seen some of the annuity carriers add that as an income doubler.
Start to, yep.
Sure, on their products. So it's a very interesting topic as a whole, because it's like you said, having a plan is important.
Yeah.
But in the long-term care piece, Alex, if you don't have a written plan, there is a written plan for you, and that falls back on what your state would say as far as how you're going to pay for the care, what that looks like, what you need to spend down to get the Medicaid. So it's important to have that conversation, right? First and foremost, asking the client, is it important to you? Have you considered it?
Yeah.
And we never want to make somebody feel like they've purchase something, but it is definitely good dialogue to have with them, because as you were kind of pointing out, you can take your whole pile of retirement dollars and spend them up like that, paying for care.
Yeah, I think that it is a conversation to have, and I'm happy that you positioned it that way, because I think that a lot of advisors, any advisor, right, could do a really good job of building a rock-solid income plan for today, even, as we mentioned before, hedge it for inflation long term. But I think that what they miss is that longevity risk. One thing that we cannot avoid, and all of us could agree on this, one thing we cannot avoid is turning another year older next year.
Yeah.
I'm sure that a lot of our people watching, and we ask a lot of people this, I'm sure that someone knows somebody that's 100 years old.
Easily.
Right?
Yeah.
Someone knows somebody that maybe it's, we have to take the keys out of dad's hand. He's driving again, and he knows he can't drive, but he's still driving. Or somebody that's running around, right, at 95 years old, and you wouldn't even notice.
Right.
The fact is, that was never a realistic story 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
It is today.
And the family has changed. Before you may had a sibling, a spouse, a parent, a grandparent that would be more than willing to step up and say, I'm going to help take care of mom.
Yeah.
Right? Now with families working 2 jobs, trying to keep up with household, maintain bills, kids, that's not the thing that we're hearing so much anymore is, I'm going to step up and mom can move in with me and we'll take care of her. So they're relying then on mom's assets to put her in a facility to help, whether that's adult daycare, whether that's full-blown, skilled care, nursing home, any of that. So this is an important topic, and like you said, to just ignore it is not the right way to go about it.
Sure, ignore the risk. I think that it is realistic that a lot of people have considered it. The number one reason people don't move forward with it is because it could be cost prohibitive, if you would. But what we want people to take away is that we want to have a conversation about the realistic risk. We want to have a conversation about if it's a concern. If it is a concern, we'll find a way to solve for it. If it's not a concern, we at least did our job and due diligence to understand the next level.
Yeah,
okay?
100%.
And there's alternative ways to do it, right?
Yeah,
there's alternative
absolutely.
ways to fund these things. It isn't traditional, you know what, it's long-term care. We don't want anybody to think that we're sitting here selling long-term care, but the fact is we can't ignore the risk behind it. Everybody has a concern about living their money, no matter how much money they have.
Yep.
And I think what that's the number one concern in retirement. That's the number one fear.
Yep.
But the fear that is behind that or beneath that is what if?
Yeah.
What if?
Yep, exactly.
Right? And that's the fear, and that's the conversation we want to have with our clients. Great topic. I'm happy that we had this conversation.
Yeah.
We always see eye to eye on these things, which is most important, right? If it's something that is concerning to you, get more information. Reach out to us. Go to our website. Get our book, ReJoyce in Your Retirement. Stay tuned. There's more to come.
The Retirement Halftime Show. Maintain your lead in retirement.
There's some things in life we can always get back. Money, that's one of them. But time, that can never be replaced. Your kids, grandkids, they don't care how big your house is or the type of car you drive. The time they spend with you, that's what matters most. Allow us to help take your financial concerns away so you can enjoy the more important things in life. Call us today at 317-903-9157. Schedule a no-obligation visit and rejoice in your retirement.
I'm Alexander Joyce, President, CEO of ReJoyce Financial. Getting the education you need for a successful retirement is key. That's why I've written my second book, ReJoyce in Your Retirement, Everything You Need to Know to Get Everything You Want. The book covers topics like identifying the income gaps, new ideas for investing, taxes and retirement, your legacy beyond dollars and cents, and much more. I've written this in an easy-to-understand format so that just about anyone can get the most out of it. To get a copy of ReJoyce in Your Retirement, Everything You Need to Know to Get Everything You Want, you can go to Amazon. But if you're one of the first callers, you can get a complimentary signed copy of this book just by scheduling a no-cost, no-obligation visit. This book is packed with information that will help you get the most out of your retirement years. If you want to know more about successful retirement strategies, then call now. Education is key. And let us help you rejoice in your retirement.
The Retirement Halftime Show. Maintain your lead in retirement.
Thank you so much for watching today's Retirement Halftime Show. If you've got any questions about today's show, give us a call, go to our website, and remember, maintain your lead in retirement. We'll see you next time.